Good evening, guys. Um, Thanks for joining us. This is a bit of a different session for me, really. As someone who's really just been dabbling with AI and predominantly Chat GPT for maybe 6 to 12 months, I've really started to explore how it can help me in my day-to-day role, really. In ways that people don't typically think of as well. So, of course, we're going to talk about code and tools to some degree, but there are other things that it can do for you as well that I've discovered that I think can just accelerate the process. I think the general rule with any of this stuff is that we should embrace it as testers. We should embrace this technology, go along for the ride, as it were, and not get left behind, right? As we do with any any new tooling or new concepts that we're eager to explore. We should embrace it. But with some understanding of limitations, early stage infancy, understanding, as someone once said to me, trust but verify. You're going to get a lot of good output from the use of tools like this. But you can't just copy and paste, right? You have to understand that it is definitely doing what you want it to do, what you expect it to do. And that the use of whatever it is you're searching for is not going to have an adverse impact. So, so tonight we're just going to touch on a few slightly different areas, hopefully from things that you've seen before. So we'll talk about its use within testing documentation, looking at test case generation, the coding and tooling, as we said. But also, hiring and recruitment. How can AI help you in your hiring and recruitment process? When you're actually building out your team. So just a few different angles, things we'll explore tonight, and hopefully it will be useful to you. All right, let's get started. Let's have a look. So I've been using Bing with Copilot, predominantly because it offers you GPT-4. So I think in time I'll definitely be signing up for probably the Chat GPT Plus version. I think that allows me to play with the APIs. But so I think there's a few different ways we can use this. There's the idea of coding from scratch. There's the idea of using AI to help you refactor some existing code. And then the idea of reverse engineering stuff as well. So if you've come across some code written by your team and you just can't quite get your head around it, I found that ChatGPT is incredibly powerful in kind of breaking down a block of code and telling you exactly what's happening. So it's really useful in each of those three things. So we'll start by just creating some code from scratch. The intention with this is not to execute each set of code. It's just to show you how ChatGPT can kind of provide you solutions. Of course, you'd have to go through, as we said before, trust but verify, right? You'd have to look at this code, you'd have to run it and make sure it's doing what it needs to do. There are likely to be tweaks that you need to make in places. But again, if you think of this from the acceleration point of view, the chances are that this will reduce your time spent on Stack Overflow and actually writing code instead. So there you go. So let's have a look creating something from scratch. So we'll do something with the Amazon site. We'll do something with WebDriver, with Ruby. Let's look at an e-commerce flow. We'll go to the site. We'll search for a product. We'll add the first matching product to cart and begin the checkout flow. Something like that. So let's ask it to write me the Selenium WebDriver Ruby code to go to the Amazon website, search for a Christmas tree, add the first matching result to cart, and then begin the checkout flow. Cool. All right. Not overly concern myself with wording there. I've just told it exactly what I want with a few specifics, and let's see what it comes up with. What I really like is that as it spits out your solution for you, it tells you exactly what's going on. It will comment the code for you, typically. and then give you some kind of useful hints at the end of it, or some notes, things to consider. So we'll let it finish and then we'll take a quick skim through what it's doing. Looks pretty good to me so far. And I think it's probably worth noting as well, if you fire this question in 3 times in a row, it's almost certainly going to give you slightly differing results from one time to the next. I think that's just the nature of what it is and how it works. But let's have a look here. Right, so we're going to require Selenium WebDriver. In fact, let's just see what it says. So, yep, here's a basic example of how you might do this with Selenium WebDriver and Ruby. Please note this is a simplified example, might not work perfectly due to complexities, yada, yada, yada. Dynamic content captures, yeah, of course, stuff we'd expect to have to deal with as an automation engineer. You may need to adjust the code to fit your specific needs. Yeah, fair enough, right? This should be considered as an accelerator to getting there. So we require WebDriver. We are going to instantiate a Firefox browser. We're going to go to the Amazon.com page. Find the search box using its ID. That's its kind of CSS locator. Search for Christmas tree. So driver.findElement ID 2-tab search text box. Well, I know that's right from experience. And then the send keys, Christmas tree. That's the search term. So a string followed by a return symbol. Interesting. So I didn't know you could do that. And then wait for the page to load and select the first result. So we've got not the most dynamic of waits there, but nonetheless it will work. Okay, driver.findElement. So I would assume that it's found a locator to hook into the first search result. Of course, we're not specifying it by product description, or we could be randomizing that. We could be selecting 3 products, but okay, good enough for now. Click on the add to cart button. So driver.findElement with an ID add to cart button. Well, yeah, I think that's right. Click, navigate to cart. Probably not the way I'd do it. I'd be doing it through the UI, but it's using a kind of a URL based command there. Click on proceed to checkout button. So find element with a name of proceed to retail checkout. Click. All right, and then just a rescue block there if necessary. All right, there you go. Not too bad. Certainly something to start experimenting with. Let's build upon that. So let's see a Python equivalent, shall we? Can you show me the same thing in Python? Let's see what it comes up with. Now, I'm no Python expert. I know the bare basics, but it should resemble this, I think. Right, okay, so yeah, we're still declaring our driver as Firefox. So we're saying driver.get amazon.com. Same kind of elements there. So search box, familiar kind of IDs, 2-tab search text box, send keys Christmas tree, send key or keys symbol return. Different method of waiting there, but again looking for the same results. Click on add to cart button. Cool. Taking the same way of navigating to the cart by going straight to its cart/view.html. Again, not the way I do it, but yes, that would work. First result. Click. Proceed to checkout button equals WebDriver wait. Proceed to checkout button. Click. Yep. So pretty much the same approach, but in Python. Great. Looks good. All right. And how about JavaScript? This for JavaScript. And then what we'll do after that, we'll up the complexity slightly. So we'll say something like, how about we'll add three random products to the cart from the search results. We'll see how it amends the first block of Ruby code that it gave us. So this looks pretty good for JavaScript. Yeah, we're seeing the same kind of CSS locator usage. Yeah, that's fine, isn't it? That's all good. begin the checkout process. Yeah, so certainly enough to get you up and running. I'll give you some code to explore to start with. Let's just say going back to Ruby. Now add 4 random products to cart from the search results. Going back to Ruby, now add 4. Yeah, cool. Let's see how it amends the Ruby block. All right, so it's taking its time. It's thinking about it. Here's how you might modify the previous. Yeah, so it does retain a record of you know, what you've been searching for. And here we go. How you might modify the previous Ruby code to add 4 random products to the cart from the search results. Cool. So yeah, we're definitely back to Ruby. Right, there we go. We can see add 4 random products to cart. So it's added a 4 times do block with the comments as usual, which is always very helpful. Let's just have a look. So under 4 random products to cart, so 4 times do, get all the search results. So results equals all, so find elements, plural, so matching elements, everything that matches .s hyphen result hyphen item. So it's using a sampling method within Ruby, result equals results.sample. So I guess it's randomizing that selection, but it's doing it 4 times. Cool. Wait for the product page to load, and then we click on the add to cart button. Cool. All right, good stuff. Like it. Let's try something a little bit different, shall we? Let's look at some JavaScript code to log into, Facebook. Let's have a look at that. Can you write me the JavaScript Selenium WebDriver code to log into Facebook? And then what I'm going to want it to do after this is to maybe look at a page object version of that to see how it can expand upon that. All right, navigate to Facebook, find the email field input. Yeah, that's all good. Can you now implement this with a page object model? All right, let's see what it gives us now. We should see those elements declared as page objects, of course. There we go. So we've got type username, type password, submit. Then you can use this login page class or this object. There we go. So await login page dot open. Login page dot type username, type password dot submit. There we go. Good stuff. All right. Yeah, someone asked me the other day how to use one of the Selenium 4 features, which is to do with the intercepting of network requests. So until now I've not looked into it, but let's have a look. Let's see what ChatGPT can give us. So what is it I want to do? Well, I want to be able to intercept network requests. I want to do it in JavaScript, and I know I'm going to need Selenium 4. So let's say, please show me how to intercept network requests using Selenium 4 and JavaScript. All right, this is a new one for me. Let's see if it gives me anything useful. There you go. Selenium 4 has the capability to intercept network requests. Here's a basic example. Okay, so we're building a Chrome instance, of course, which we'd expect because it's not something we have in other browsers. Something there to add headers: devtools.send, devtools.network.set extra HTTP headers. Okay. In this example, we're using the DevTools package from Selenium WebDriver to enable the network domain and set extra HTTP headers. This is a basic example. Depending on your needs, you might want to intercept and modify responses. Okay. Block certain types of network traffic or simulate different network conditions. All right. So honestly, I don't really know what I'm looking for out of this at the moment. But this is probably a good example of where I can probe it a little bit further and look at some of the pre-canned question extensions, if you like, right? So how do I modify network responses? Okay, let's have a look at that. It's nice here. It gives me the source articles of where it's found some of this information, of course. I guess lots of those are going to be sites that you're probably familiar with, but okay, look at that. We're adding a listener. All right. Nice. Yeah, I mean, certainly that's something I would start experimenting with. I have no idea if that would work or not at this point. It's quite interesting. It almost started with a bit of a disclaimer there, right? Modifying network responses directly using Selenium WebDriver is not straightforward because WebDriver is designed to automate browser actions and not to modify network traffic. However, you can retrieve the response body using Selenium 4's DevTools. So it's nice. It gives you a little bit of context as well, which I think is really good. But there you go. That's certainly something I would be willing to explore and see if that's going to give me what I need it to do. What about if I want to maybe capture the HTTP response and the page load times and write them to a file, for example? So let's just say, show me the code in Ruby with Selenium WebDriver to capture the HTTP response codes and page load times as I navigate a website. There you go, a bit more of a specific challenge for it. Let's see what it comes up with there. So show me the code in Ruby with Selenium WebDriver to capture the HTTP response codes and page load times as I navigate a website. All right. Let's see if it's going to give me any kind of disclaimer. Right, so note that WebDriver does not support capturing HTTP response codes directly. You might need to use additional tools or library. Oh, interesting, such as Browser Mob Proxy or Wireshark. Okay, let's see what it gives me. I didn't mention outputting to a text file, so I'll do that now. Okay, still give me some extra information. All right. Can you give me the Ruby code to output the page load times to a text file? There you go. Right, there we go. I've got the instructions to write to file there as well. Cool. So in this script, we're measuring the page load time as before, but we're now also writing the URL and the load time to a text file named loadtimes.txt. The a parameter in the file.open method means we're opening the file in append mode, so new load times will be added to the end of the file instead of overwriting the existing content. All right, pretty cool. I like that. Yep, remember to install the necessary dependencies. This is a basic example. All right, cool. So yeah, a few different challenges there. Nothing really that it's tripped up over, I would say. Again, trust but verify. You're going to want to test this stuff to make sure it does what you want it to do. But yeah, I like that. It's decent. It's certainly enough to get me up and running for sure. So one of the things that this has been really, really useful for is refactoring code and kind of reverse engineering code. So as I said earlier, maybe if there's something that someone in the team's kind of authored and either they're not there or they're not around to have that chat with, and you're just trying to decipher it for yourself, this is a great way of doing that. So I've got some code, I've got some Ruby, so we'll just work with some of this. So now I know what this does, and that's fine, but let's see how ChatGPT interprets this. And we'll look at some increasingly complex examples as well. All right, so I'm just going to say, tell me what this code does. All right, question mark, and then I'm just going to paste in that method exactly there. I'm not worrying myself about formatters, as we say. And let's see what it tells us. Okay, so this code defines a method, check or uncheck active state by user. That's correct. Takes two params, user 1, user 2. Yep. Default value for user 2 is this. Yep. The method performs two main operations, each wrapped in a try with attempts block, which attempts to execute the block of code multiple times, 5 in this case. Yeah, that's true. Before giving up, this is useful in scenarios where an operation might fail due to temporary conditions like network latency. All right, so again, it gives you some context there. I mean, that's exactly why we had that try with block. We want to give an individual method a little bit of tolerance for whatever reason. Could be the environment or a certain part of the application. But okay, first operation, it tries to click on the active check by user 1. Okay, so it's this line up here. Yep. This could be a checkbox or a button that toggles some active state. Well, yeah, it is. It's a checkbox. It waits for 0.5 seconds after each click. Yep, there's a sleep 0.5 there. That's exactly what it does. The refresh true option, where do we have that? Oh, up here. So it's part of that try with block. The refresh true option suggests that the page or some element on the page is refreshed before each attempt. Yep, again, absolutely true. Second operation, it tries to close a toast notification for user 2. Yes, it does. Scrolls to the bottom of the browser, clicks a save button, and then waits until the save button is disabled. It waits for 1 second after each attempt. So, it's fair enough. It's not the most complicated example. However, that's given a really, really good breakdown. If this was something that I couldn't quite get my head around, or I wasn't too clear on and I wanted to understand what it was doing, if I can get this kind of breakdown and it tells me what's going on, then it's probably going to tell me everything I need to know. I like the summary. You get these with the responses as well, kind of a summary wrap up. So this method seems to be used to change some active state related to user 1, save the changes and handle any notifications or alerts that might appear during the process. And that's exactly what it's doing. The exact details would depend upon the implementation. So there are methods there that it doesn't have access to. So active check by user. So that's this guy here. So yeah, it doesn't know what that is. It's interpreting that by the name of that method. As it is with this one here, close toast notification. It doesn't really know what that is. And the context in which the method is used. Please note this is a general interpretation. Yeah, I mean that's fair, isn't it? You know, it can only work upon what you gave it, but it's certainly understood the essence of what that's trying to do. All right, so let's try something a little bit nastier. What I would like to do with this one as well. This was something that was written. And it works and it's fine. It does what we need it to do, but it's horrific. You know, there has to be a smarter way of writing this, and I know that there is. Essentially, you know, without you guys knowing the application that this is actually testing, it's working through a kind of an expandable tree-based hierarchy within the UI, where you know a parent can have a child, they can have children, and there can be data on these nodes, as we call them. And this is an after hook, so we're using this within our tests to clear down or tear down data effectively. Because it's only once we've done that, we've cleared down data from each node, and then rolling up a node to the parent above it and cleared down the data. Only by doing that can we delete the absolute root that comes before all of those. So yeah, it's quite complicated, but it was written at the time, and you know it works, so it's been left untouched. But it's, you know, it's not very readable in the slightest. There has to be a better way of refactoring that. So let's give Copilot or ChatGPT the option to do that. Let's see how it interprets it first of all. So what's this code doing? I mean, this I think is the prime example of some code you'd come across that someone else had written, and you say, yeah, I could pick my way through that, but really it'd be easier to get a breakdown. All right, so let's see how Copilot interprets this. So written in Ruby, yes, it is. It's an after all block, which is typically used in testing frameworks like RSpec. This block of code is executed after all the tests have run. There you go, bit of context, correct. Here's a high-level overview of what this code does. So it checks if it's the first process. The parallel tests.firstProcess method checks if the current process is the first one when tests are run in parallel. If it is, the code inside the if statement is executed. All right. Wait for other processes to finish. Yeah, okay, here we go. We'll get to the crux of it. So log in and get hierarchy. It then logs in as a user with details fetched by user details. Yeah, quite correct. That is a method that is extracting some details from a YAML file within the automation framework, so it understands that. And it fetches a hierarchy of nodes related to a project with ID 1. And this is the key bit. So it iterates over the hierarchy. The code then iterates over each level of nodes in the hierarchy from levels 1 to 4. For each node, it does the following. It fetches the summary details of the node. For each run in the node summary, it deletes the specific data related to that run. It then updates the labels assigned to the node to nil, effectively removing all labels. Yep, again, quite correct. Finally, it deletes the node itself. Yeah, absolutely. Log information. After all nodes have been processed and deleted, it logs the information, all data, labels, nodes cleared down. There you go. So, I mean, now that was a big chunk of code, and it's given me a really good understanding of what it's meant to do. And that's exactly what it is doing. So in summary, this code is cleaning up data after all tests have run. It's deleting specific run data, removing labels, and deleting nodes in a project hierarchy. And bearing in mind, you know, I've given it this query. It knows nothing of the application under test. It's just parsing that code. I can only assume that if some of your methods were badly named, it might struggle a little bit more. But there you go. This is typically done to ensure a clean state for a subsequent test run or to free up resources after testing is complete. Please note that there you go. So yeah, that's very, very useful to actually pull some code apart and give yourself a better understanding of what's going on. But not done yet, are we? So I want to say, please refactor this for me. All right, let's give it a challenge. Let's see what it comes up with. And I'm hoping for a good explanation as to as well. Right, so here's a version that reduces repetition by using a recursive function to handle nodes at any level. So we're still working off the context that it's understood from the previous, the review of the code, if you like. Okay. Right, so it's actually written a process node method. That's cool. Okay, nice. Let's have a look. It's certainly shorter. That's for sure. So it's still an after all hook. If parallel tests .first .process def process node. Yeah. Now that's certainly one I can test because I could do a direct swap with the code in our code base right now. We're going to do that with another one in just a second, but the what it tells me about the process. So this refactored code does the same thing as the original, but it's more concise and easier to maintain. Right, well, there you go. That's exactly why we're refactoring. If you need to change our nodes or process, you only need to change it in one place now. Perfect. The process node function handles nodes at any level by calling itself recursively for each child node. Great. I will look at implementing that, and I will test it, of course, and make sure it runs. All right, great. There's one more I wanted to look at. Close toast notification. Cool. Close toast notification desktop. There we go. This was another one that's been in our code base for a while. Not something we're proud of at all, but needs must at the time. This, to give you some context, this was where you saved some state in the application at various pages, and as you do that, it gives you essentially a top right screen sliding banner type of confirmation. So such and such was successful, or this was set, or that was set. And the challenge with this has always been underneath those, they're called toast notifications, but underneath those are whilst they were present, they would be obscuring additional menu functionality underneath it. Hence this reference to obscured that you can see there. Anyway, let's just see what it makes of this. What does this code do? I'm just going to paste it in. And I would definitely like a refactored version of this. So we'll ask it the question. And then I will take its refactored code. I'll implement it and we'll test it out and we'll see how well it works. Right, this Ruby method close toast notification desktop appears to be designed to close toast notifications. Of course, it doesn't know what those are, which is fine. Okay, it initializes two variables, obscured and count loop. Obscured is a Boolean flag, true, false, used to indicate with an element. In this case, the user's email is obscured by a toast notification. Quite correct. Count loop is a counter for the number of attempts made to close the notifications. Step 2, we check for notifications. This method enters a loop that continues as long as obscured is true and count loop is less than or equal to 3. All right, so if I didn't understand what this is doing, now I'm starting to get that picture. Inside the loop, it checks if the user's email is obscured. So close notifications, step 3. If the email is obscured, it counts the number of toast notifications identified by such and such a class, CSS locator, and logs this count. It then attempts to click each notification to close it. If there are no notifications to click, which would raise a particular type of water exception, it logs a message and continues. Then retry or exit. After attempting to close the notifications, it checks again if the email is still obscured. If it is, it increments count loop and the loop will continue for another iteration. If the email is not obscured, it sets obscured to false which will break the loop. So again, without any context of our application under test, it's completely nailed, what this method is doing. All right. And then we've got the summary at the end. In summary, this method tries up to 4 times to close any toast notifications that are obscuring the user's email. It uses the Water library for browser automation to interact with the web page. Yeah, great. All right. I mean, that's exactly what it's doing. It's horrific. And we've tried and failed with this in the past. So I'm going to set it the challenge and just say, please refactor it for me. All right, and whatever it gives me, I'm going to put into the code, and we shall run it and test it and see if it works. Sure, here's a refactored version of your method. I've extracted the repeated logic into a separate method, make it cleaner, easier to maintain. Okay, so we've got close notification desktop. We've got a separate method now, which is a check and close notifications. And we've got a close notifications method as well. All right, what's it saying? So in this refactored code, the close toast notification desktop method now only contains the loop logic. The logic for checking if the email is obscured and closing notifications has been moved to the check and close notifications and close notifications methods respectively. This makes the code more modular and easier to read and maintain. Please note that the exact functionality. Yeah. All right, fair enough. So I am perfectly willing to drop that into my code base and give it a roll, and let's see what happens. So it was just close toast notification desktop previously. Everything was in that one method. So we will comment that out. Let's take these 3 methods. One, two, three. Yep. Okay. 1, 2, 3. And we will still be calling close toast notification desktop. All right, so let's just find a test which contains this. This one here. Here we go. Run that test, and we'll see how it gets on. So the application under test here is the Test Evolve Halo reporting platform. So it's probably going to open it up in Chrome, I think. Yep. And I'll try and point out it's where you see the test.user.1 at Mailinator there. That's the email address of the test user in the top right. And as we do certain things, you will occasionally, there you go, there's a toast notification, saved, success, there's another one. And it appears to have clicked on those to get them out of the way. And what you see there is this was a challenge, but we never knew exactly how many we're going to get, because certain events generate either 1 or 2 together. But while they were there, the email address underneath that is going to be obscured, and that stops us from doing other things. Now that test has failed, but was that because of the refactored code? No, that's failed elsewhere in the code. So no, as far as that particular refactored method, that's been absolutely fine. That's done exactly what we needed it to do, and it's arguably far easier to maintain, far easier to read. So yeah, just goes to show you it's a fantastic tool for refactoring your code where you know that it needs to be refactored, and to deciphering other people's code, or to getting a clearer understanding of something that you're not as sure on as you would like to be. Cool. All right. I wanted to see how Copilot ChatGPT could help me with some API testing. And again, I want to see that from a Ruby and from a JavaScript perspective. Okay, so I have a very specific question for it, and I have some setup type information to set the scene for it. So let's have a look. So I have an API to test. Let's say /user/roles/global. Okay. It accepts patch requests and returns a 200 when valid. The headers must contain accept content type, X API version, cookie, and X validation token. Right, so let's just check that. I have an API to test, but that's the endpoint, accepts patch requests and returns a 200 when valid. The headers must contain accept content. Okay, cool. Okay, good. How, sorry, no, let's put show me the code to test this with Ruby and REST client. REST client's a library we use for API testing. Okay, let's see what it gives us. So I've given it a good amount of information there. Okay, so straight away it's going to reference the REST client gem. That's good. Required JSON. So set your URL with your endpoint. Define all of your headers. Okay. Payload, yes, I didn't mention the payload, of course. So JSON object to_JSON, make the patch request. So response equals REST client, REST execute method patch with the URL, the payload, and the headers. Check the response code. If response.code equals 200, puts test passed, else puts test failed with an alternative response code. Cool. Yeah, it looks good. Please replace blah, blah, blah with your actual endpoint, of course, your cookie, your validation token. Yep. Also, if your API requires a payload, replace with your actual payload. Yep, all makes sense. Cool. However, in another project, I want to see the same thing. Show me how to do this with JavaScript and the Axios library. Okay, same thing, different way of doing it. Let's see what it can give us. Okay. So I guess the format's probably going to be kind of similar, but yeah, defining the headers, payload, and then yeah, I guess it's the way in which we call the endpoint that is going to be fundamentally different. So axios.patch, URL, payload, headers, console.log, test passed, else console log. Cool, with a catch error if the request should fail. Great, okay. So what I'm interested in now, and this kind of takes us into the next segment, if you like, is that of how we can use AI and ChatGPT to help us with test case generation. All right, so now it understands about our endpoint. let's ask it to, we shall say, design me a matrix of positive and negative tests for this API. All right. Now, because I've asked for matrix there as well, it should take that into account when it gives me the formatting, the output. So we can see there, yeah, there we go. It's doing it in a kind of a tabular format. All right, so here's a basic test matrix of positive and negative scenarios for the user roles global API endpoint. Right, let's see what we've got. So test type positive or negative. We've got a 400 or a 406 for negative, 400 or a 415. Interesting. 200 on the positive, of course, which is basically a valid patch request. But how cool is this? So I've given it the information it needs, or the majority of it anyway. And off the back of that, it goes away and says, right, these are, and as we'd expect, right, you know, a limited number of positive tests, but much more focus on the negative tests. So what is it about some of these that would be considered negative then, right? So patch request without the accept header. Well, I told Copilot that it needed an accept header, so it's taken the absence of that to be something that would trigger a negative condition, right? Same thing without the content type, so it's going to presumably go through all of those without the X API version, without the cookie, etc., etc. And then it's taken a slightly different approach, so it's made a patch request, but the headers are present, but it's got an invalid payload. So an invalid JSON object is going to return a 400, that's a negative. Or an empty payload, which is test case 08. Oh, there you go. That's nice as well. So instead of a patch request, it's thrown in a get request. And I love the fact there it's picked up on the fact it'd be a different, negative response code, a 405 rather than a 400. So yeah, how cool is that? That's really nice to know. That you kind of set the scene, you ask it to tell you how to test it, and then you can generate some test cases as well. So what are the prompts it gives us here, right? So how do I create more complex scenarios for testing? Can you recommend any tools or frameworks for API testing? Or what is a test matrix? Okay, so they're a bit more hypothetical, theoretical stuff. You know, I'm not going to explore that for now. However, I am interested in some other types of test case generation. So let's think about another application. So maybe a holiday booking website. Okay, let's try and see what it can come up with that. Generate, let's say build me a test case matrix with positive and negative tests for a holiday booking website. Build me a test case matrix of positive and negative tests for a holiday booking website. Be sure to include, let's think about our test types. So let's say functional tests, performance tests, and some security tests. All right, let's just tidy up my typing and then let's see what it can come up with. So yeah, the idea that using AI can help you generate some test case. Now, of course, you know, I'd expect every one of us to think of almost all of these in the course of what we do, right? We're testers. This is our job. But again, just coming back to this initializing concept of acceleration, but also validating what it's giving you, right? So, you know, you're not just taking it at face value, but you're reading through it saying, yeah, does this make sense for what I asked it to do? So let's look at what we just said. So I gave it no information other than that this is a holiday booking website. And all right, so it's given me what, a matrix of 12 tests, positive and negative. We can see the breakdown there. It's also given us the category differences between functional, performance, and security. And to be fair, you know, these are quite the descriptions are quite high level, quite simplistic, but are they relevant for the the theoretical type of application that I asked it for? And yeah, I'd say absolutely, right? So positive test, search for a holiday package, expected result, display the relevant holiday packages. Yeah, fair enough. Search for a holiday package with invalid data, show an error message. Book a holiday package, successfully book the package. Book a holiday package without login, redirect to login page. So yeah. Cancel a booked holiday, successfully cancels the booking. So yeah, without any real contextual information, it's not done a bad job there at all. So you can definitely use tools like this to spur on your creative thinking. As I say, I'd expect all of us to really come up with these given some good requirements and a good understanding of the application. But there is a place to say that AI can help you with some accelerated kind of test case generation. But just focusing on the different types of tests, right? So some very basic performance tests there. They probably wouldn't stand up to mass scrutiny, but load homepage under normal load. Page loads within acceptable time. Well, it's got the essence of what we're asking in there, but load homepage under high load. Page load time increases. All right, then we've got some security. So it's got like SQL injection attack in the search field. All right, absolutely. And a cross-site scripting attack, XSS attack in the review section. The attack should be unsuccessful. So again, very, very basic things from a performance and security point of view. And in reality, we'd never write a test case matrix that tried to cover so much ground. But it's it's getting the essence of what I'm asking it. So I think we can definitely see the use of this here as well. Now, what ChatGPT has also proven very useful for is within some test data generation as well. Now, again, I know there are libraries that we can use within an automation framework to randomize and create items of test data on the fly. But if you want to create some stuff in advance for a particular reason, I've experimented with a few options here that can be very, very useful, right? So let's have a look at one. Let's say, can you generate me 10 items of test data consisting of, let's say, first name, surname, age, real UK address with random phone numbers. All right, and what can it give me? What can it offer me? So limited to 10 items. Okay, fair enough. So it can't give me real addresses, but I can generate fake data for you. All right, first name, surname, age, address, and a random phone number. Well, that's probably still going to serve my purpose, isn't it? Let's see if we can lead it slightly more. Please note that these are completely made up. Any resemblance to real locations, phone numbers is purely coincidental. Okay, fair enough. Let's try. Let's try creating some products for an e-commerce website. So how about create me 10 e-commerce website example products containing product name, description, price, and age range. There you go. Nothing too controversial about that. Let's see what it comes up with. Cool. All right, there we go. So, product name, a description, a price, and an age range. So the actual format of the output is slightly different, but that's fine. That could be useful for a certain thing I'm trying to test. So yeah, there you go. Interesting. One thing that I'm always looking for is test credit card numbers. And I usually have to Google around or go to a particular card payment provider, whatever it is, to get me those numbers. Let's see if there's a shortcut to doing that here. So generate me a list of 10 working test credit card numbers, including MasterCard, Visa, and Amex. All right, let's see if it can give me something there. Doesn't like that one. Let's try. Let's just clear down the history. Wonder I touched a nerve there. List me some test credit card numbers for MasterCard and Visa. All right, no, well, I've definitely touched a nerve. It doesn't like that, but fair enough. That's probably one I'm still going to have to keep googling then. But anyhow, so I think if you are looking to create some test data, more in advance, not on the fly, using a particular library to do that, you've definitely got some options there. So there you go. So if you don't have loads and loads of experience kind of writing slightly more traditional testing documentation for any reason, I've realised that this is something that ChatGPT can also help you with. Okay, so let's ask it first of all if it's aware of any software testing documentation standards. Any software? Whoa, bad spelling. Software testing documentation standards. Let's see what it can tell us about that. And what I'm looking for really is reference to there we go, took a while. The IEEE standards. 829, that's what I was looking for. There we go. Right, the standard provides a comprehensive set of requirements for test planning documentation as well as test specification and test reporting documentation. Cool. So actually, what's interesting here, it's gone right to the most recent standards, ones of which I'm not as familiar with, to be honest. Probably the ones that were somewhat controversial, with the likes of James Bark, for example. But 29119-1 2022, so fairly up to date. That's cool. So the standard provides general concepts for software testing, covers topics such as plans, strategies, testing frameworks. Okay. What else we got there? We've got 29119-4 deals with testing techniques and strategies, and 29119-5 keyword-based software testing. Interesting. Some of the references down here, not surprisingly, ISO, so kind of the standards organisation themselves. BCS, British Computer Society. That's fine. So now the one I had in mind, as I say, I was waiting to see if it came up with an answer there, was 829. So if I've only really worked in an agile world or a small team, I've not come from that more traditional testing background, and if for any reason I'm called upon to write a kind of standards compliant test plan, this is a great way of doing it. So I can simply say, show me a template test plan that is compliant with IEEE 829. All right, so I'm not going to give it all the details. I just want the structure and the outline. I've never done one of these things before. what do I need to do? So there we go. Let's see what it says. So it acknowledges that it's compliant with the 829 standard. So I guess it's just going to give me a long list of all of the sections within that document that I need to incorporate. So, right, a test plan identifier, introduction, test items, features. So if you've never been called upon to write a document like this, some of this is probably alien to you, right? But should you need to, you've now got a way in which it can, again, as I say, accelerate the process, right? Make it easy to do. Suspension resumption criteria, yep. Deliverables, testing tasks, environmental needs, responsibilities. Now, I don't have an 829 test plan to hand right next to me, but I'm fairly sure that the 15 or so sections we've got here would be mirrored in an official 829 test plan template. But yeah, great. Look at that. That's awesome. What about something different? Do you have an example performance testing plan? There you go. Not my forte by any means, but I'm just curious as to what a slightly different stance on this would cause them to come up with. All right, here we go. All right, so similarities there, but you can see when we get into testing approach, it talks about kind of the strategy and understanding the differences between load, stress, soak testing, etc. All right, that's maybe not the best example. I don't think I'm entirely sold on that, but there you go. I think I'll come back to the first one, right? So if you're looking, for the ins and outs of a good quality test plan document, I think this is giving you a very reasonable version there, right? What about things like bug reports? So help me write a good quality for this bug. I can't set a password longer than 12 characters. All right, so completely notional, mythical bug there on an application, but let's see how it can help me with that. All right, so yeah, nice. Title, description, steps to reproduce, expected results, actual results, environment, severity, additional notes. Okay, pretty decent to me. There you go. So, not documentation per se, but the idea of, one of the most important things we have to do, which is raising bugs and the level of expected detail, we should be dropping into those. So, there you go. So I think it can be very useful if you're not, if you don't have a strong background in certain types of documentation. And these are just a couple of very basic examples, but I think these are areas where it can help you, or certainly guide you on your way. All right, but so I think we'll move on to how I've found that it can be also helpful with recruitment. All right. I found that it can be really useful with kind of writing job specs and also preparing interviews. So this is definitely not your kind of typical use of AI, but if you're trying to find a particular person for a particular role, you're trying to write the perfect spec to find the perfect person. It's something that can help you with that. And as I say, preparing for these interviews where you've got a certain candidate with a certain skill set and you want to tailor your kind of questioning, your interviewing techniques to that person and their skill set, it can be really useful to help you do that as well. So let's have a look. And we might, I'm going to do some of these completely off the cuff, so we'll see how it goes. So, right. me a job spec for an opening I have senior test automation engineer. And I suspect what I need to do with this is kind of see what it gives me and then feed back to it and say, right, let's tailor it more to be more towards this particular tool or this skill set or whatever. So let's see what it comes off with straight off the bat. So senior test automation engineer, job description, seeking highly skilled, yada, yada, yada. Responsibilities, qualifications. All right, yeah, pretty good so far. Preferred skills. So it's already inserting some languages, frameworks in there for me as examples, of course. Nice. Okay, I actually quite like that. Okay, let's say, can you make it more specific to the playwright tool? Let's see how it changes it. Giving it something to think about there. All right, here we go. All right, so aside from just name dropping playwright in there a few times, some of this stuff is it's probably consistent. I'm trying to see if it knowledge of scripting languages like Python, JavaScript, etc. Okay, all right. Maybe if I said, can you change this to be for a penetration testing consultant. So rather than changing the tool, let's change the role. All right, clearly a big change in focus there. Penetration testing, vulnerability assessments, identify system vulnerabilities, validate they're exploitable. Yeah, okay. Bachelor's degree in computer science, cyber security or related field. Proven experience as a penetration testing consultant or similar role. Look, interesting, it's actually brought in some certifications there as well. So relevant certifications such as Certified Ethical Hacker, CEH, or the OSCP, one I'm not familiar with, the Offensive Security Certified Professional. So yeah, quite clear it's able to tailor things to you. So yeah, quickly writing job specs and finding people. That can be quite useful for this as well, I think. Now, if you've got your spec up and you're now at the point of interviewing someone for something, what about generating some interview questions that you might want to call upon? So let's have a look. Let's start with a testing manager type of role. Okay, so write me 10 fundamental questions that an ISTQB advanced test manager should be able to answer. All right, so this is me prepping for an interview. Let's see how it helps me to do that. Let's see if we agree as well. Okay, so what is the role of a test manager? How do you define and measure the success of the testing team? Key elements of a test plan. Yeah, okay. How would you create one? possibly by using Bing to create an 829 standard, as we saw earlier. Can you explain the concept of risk-based testing and how it can be implemented? Yep, 100%. This is management level stuff. How do you manage and prioritize test cases in a large project? What strategies would you use to ensure effective communication? Yeah, great. I mean, this is all good advanced test manager type of theory, right? So there you go, classic. How do you handle conflict within your teams or within other teams? What metrics would you use? That's a good one. How do you manage testing in different software development life cycles, waterfall, agile, etc.? Yeah, I mean that's bang on, I would say. I think that's great. Okay, now give me 15 interview questions for an expert JMeter performance. Oh my word. All right, let's see how it tailors it both towards performance testing and also JMeter itself. All right, looks good. Key elements of a JMeter test plan, types of processes. Yep, good. Pre and post. Parameterizing data, handling correlation. How do you monitor and analyze results? Distribute testing in JMeter. Yep. How do you ensure reliability and accuracy of your performance tests? 13 is a bit wacky. Can you describe a time when you use JMeter to simulate a high-low test? Pretty much every time you use it, I'd imagine. But yeah, not bad, not bad. Let's try a variation on a theme. Can you give me 10 questions to ask a security tester about OWASP ZAP? Okay, let's see how it does with this. Setting up and configuring, yeah, common security threats. Interesting. Yeah, they feel a little bit more generic to me, but fair enough. Anyway, I think you get the idea. So I think the idea that AI again, right, can accelerate your process of finding the right person and then interviewing them, within your recruitment and hiring process. Yeah, I think it can absolutely help you. But there you go, interesting stuff. But moving on. As we close out, thank you for your time, guys. A couple of things that I didn't mention, where I've also found ChatGPT to be very useful. Anything to do with SQL generation and also regex as well. That can be one of those things which takes a little bit of trial and error. So if you've got some regex you need to write to extract a certain value from a string or whatever it is you need to do in the course of your automation, kind of ChatGPT can very quickly give you the correct regex to do something like that, or help you generate the correct SQL query that you need to do a certain thing. So those are a couple of other things that are definitely very useful. In terms of where this goes, as we said at the start of this is, love it or hate it, AI is very much here to stay, right? We've the cork is out the bottle and it's definitely not going in, shall we say? So back in. So we best jump on the ride and embrace it, right? I think we only have things to gain from this as testers. Is AI going to do everyone out of a job in quality assurance? No, absolutely not. Can it help you do your job better, quicker, more efficiently? Yeah, 100% it can. So, you know, I think you put the right context to it and use it in a way that benefits you. You know, don't be fearful of it. Tools wise, I think it's very interesting. I think what we're going to see is there's a couple of things I've been reading about, things I can see happening. And I think frameworks are going to incorporate calling ChatGPT via the API directly from the IDE itself. So you might be, you know, you're writing your code there and then, and within, you know, without even leaving the IDE, you can fire off, you know, a code query or a refactoring query like we've looked at today to ChatGPT via the APIs. You know, without having to step out and go to your browser. So I think there's going to be more direct interaction from automation frameworks and you know, obviously development frameworks, libraries, to things like ChatGPT, more of a direct connection, so that you have, you know, another tool at your fingertips, if you like, you know, to be used in some of the ways that we've demonstrated today. And possibly also things like, and this sounds quite interesting to me, the idea of calling out to Jira via its APIs, for example, to call back all of the details of a certain bug that's been raised. And then combining that with a call to ChatGPT to help generate test cases to thoroughly test that bug. And again, all from you know, tools at your fingertips from your IDE as part of your automation framework. So that's another interesting direction. You know, these things don't always work out the way people think they're going to. They don't always prove to be the most useful things, but there, you know, there's no shortage of things that can be done there. And finally, one place I did see an interesting implementation of this was with the idea of self-healing locators within a test automation framework, but a coded framework, right? So not a solution like you know, Mabel or Testim, for example, a solution, kind of a coded framework, traditional coded like a Java Selenium framework. But at the instance of an element not found error, or you know, particular you know, element not interactable, a Selenium error. The idea of calling out to ChatGPT, for which you've already supplied it with the DOM for the page of your application, and then having it in real time at runtime analyze that DOM for alternative locator strategies, probably XPath based. So I've seen a few examples of those. If you look around, you can find them, albeit very, very slow right now. So to me, that was like, well, no, this isn't really a workable solution. But, you know, people are pushing the boundaries. They're exploring. They're seeing how they can bring this stuff into, you know, everyday testing life. So, yeah, lots to be excited about, I think. So embrace the journey. You know, start to look at how any aspect of AI can start to assist you in any aspect of your day job. All right. So, yeah, thanks as always for listening. I hope that's some or all of that has been useful, and we'll see you real soon. Cheers.